Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Meridian, watching the stars drift past the main viewing screen, and felt the familiar weight of deep space exploration on his shoulders as they moved through the empty darkness between solar systems on their way to survey new worlds. For Earth Command, the ship had been traveling for 3 months through unexplored space when Communications Officer Ryan Beck suddenly straightened at his station and called out that he was picking up something strange on the long-range sensors that looked like an artificial signal coming from the Kepler 440 system, which was supposed to be empty according to all their star charts. And survey data. Jake walked over to Ryan's station and looked at the readouts, showing a series of mathematical patterns that repeated every few minutes in a way that could only come from intelligent technology rather than natural space phenomena like pulsars or cosmic radiation, which meant someone or something was out there broadcasting into the void. Lisa Carter came up from the science labs when she heard the commotion and took one look at the signal patterns before her eyes went wide with surprise as she recognized something familiar in the mathematical sequences that reminded her of old Earth communication protocols from centuries ago, when humanity first started reaching out to the stars. Ran the signal through the computer analysis systems and confirmed that the transmission was using the same basic mathematical framework that Earth had developed for deep space communication back in the early days of interstellar exploration, which seemed impossible since no human colony ships had ever been sent to this distant region of space. Engineer Amy Rodriguez joined them on the bridge and ran her own scans of the signal source, discovering massive energy signatures coming from the third planet in the Kepler 440 system that suggested not just life but advanced civilization with power generation capabilities that exceeded anything in Earth's current colonial network. The crew gathered around the central display table as Jake pulled up all available data on the mysterious system and found that it had never been explored by human ships despite being within range of Earth's expansion efforts over the past several centuries, which raised questions about how anyone could have reached it before. Thunder Carter ran more detailed analysis on the signal patterns and discovered they contained embedded data streams that used encryption methods similar to those developed by Earth's deep space exploration program nearly 800 years ago. During humanity's first attempts to establish colonies beyond the solar system, Ryan worked to decode the transmissions and found references to Earth calendar dates and astronomical coordinates that matched historical records from the early colonial period, when several experimental colony ships had been launched using prototype, faster-than-light drive systems that were later abandoned as too dangerous for regular use. Commander Kate Sullivan listened to all the reports and faced a difficult decision, since Earth Command had given them strict orders to survey 3 specific star systems and return with mineral and habitability reports, rather than investigate mysterious signals that could delay their mission for months. Jake argued that discovering evidence of human civilization in unexplored space represented a major breakthrough that could change everything humanity knew about its own expansion history, and might provide answers to questions about several colony ships that had disappeared without trace during the early exploration period. Lisa presented data showing that the energy signatures from the planet suggested technology far more advanced than anything currently available to Earth's colonies, which could mean either that these mysterious humans had made incredible technological leaps or that they had encountered and learned from alien civilizations. He pointed out that if there really was an advanced human colony in the Kepler 440 system, then they might have solutions to problems that Earth's colonies were struggling with, including energy generation, resource extraction, and long-term survival in hostile environments far from home. The bridge crew debated the implications while Jake weighed his options, knowing that disobeying direct orders from Earth Command could end his career, but also understanding that this discovery might be too important to ignore even if it meant facing court-martial. When they returned, Kate finally gave her approval for a course change to investigate the signal source after Jake convinced her that they had a duty to make contact with any human survivors who might be stranded in deep space and in need of rescue or assistance from their home world. Meridian changed course toward the Kepler 440 system while Ryan continued monitoring the mysterious transmissions, and Lisa worked on decoding more of the embedded data that seemed to contain technical specifications and cultural information from what appeared to be a thriving human civilization. As they approached the outer edge of the star system, the signals grew stronger and more complex, revealing multiple transmission sources across the third planet's surface, suggesting not just a small outpost, but a large-scale civilization that had been developing in isolation for centuries. Siake stood at the captain's chair, watching the unknown world grow larger on the screen, and wondered what they would find when they arrived at this lost human civilization that had somehow reached the stars before Earth's official expansion began, and what it would mean for humanity's future among the stars. The UES Meridian entered orbit around the mysterious planet, and Lieutenant Colonel Danny Phillips prepared his away team for what might be the most important first contact mission in human history, even though they were supposedly making contact with other humans rather than alien species, which created confusion about which protocols to follow. Draimi Rodriguez joined the away team as their linguist and cultural specialist, while Security Chief Paul Henderson insisted on full combat gear, despite Jake's orders to approach peacefully, since they still had no idea what kind of society these lost humans had developed during their centuries of isolation. The planet below showed clear signs of massive cities with strange architecture that seemed to blend familiar human building styles with completely alien design elements that spiraled impossibly high into the atmosphere using construction techniques that defied everything Earth's engineers thought they knew about physics and materials. Science Sidney piloted the shuttle through the planet's upper atmosphere, while Amy monitored local communication frequencies and picked up radio chatter in what sounded like evolved English mixed with other Earth languages that had changed dramatically over the centuries of isolation from their home world. The cities spread across vast areas with transportation networks that seemed to use some form of magnetic levitation rather than traditional roads or railways, and the energy readings from the surface suggested power generation methods far beyond anything in Earth's current technological capability. Spall scanned for weapons, signatures, and defensive systems, but found energy patterns he could not identify, which made him nervous, since the unknown technology could represent either peaceful applications or military systems beyond their understanding and ability to counter. If things went wrong, they landed the shuttle in what appeared to be a designated area outside one of the smaller cities, where automated systems guided them to a safe landing zone with precision that suggested their arrival had been expected and prepared for by whoever controlled the planet's air traffic systems. Immediately detected local broadcasts welcoming them in accented English and inviting them to make peaceful contact with representatives of what they called the New Frontier Colony, which had been established by survivors of an Earth colony ship that was lost centuries ago during the early expansion period. He led the team out of the shuttle, wearing environmental suits despite atmospheric readings showing the air was breathable, and found themselves facing a small group of humans who looked remarkably similar to Earth colonists, except for subtle differences in height and bone structure that suggested genetic adaptation to local conditions. The local representative introduced herself as Maria Walsh and explained that her people had been monitoring Earth's expansion efforts through long-range observation systems and had been waiting for the right moment to reestablish contact with their ancestral home world after centuries of isolation. She led them through the city streets, where Danny observed architecture that combined human aesthetic sensibilities with building techniques that allowed structures to reach incredible heights without apparent structural support systems, which suggested mastery of gravity manipulation or advanced materials science. Amy documented everything she saw, including transportation pods that moved silently through the air without visible propulsion systems, and public spaces filled with humans who appeared healthy and long-lived compared to typical Earth colonists living in harsh frontier conditions. Maria explained that her ancestors had arrived on this world nearly 800 years ago, when their colony ship, the New Frontier, had been thrown off course by a malfunction in its experimental faster-than-light drive system and ended up stranded in this distant star system with no way to return home. Colonists had discovered that the planet was already inhabited by an alien species called the Vorthok, who were highly advanced but dying out as their civilization entered its final phase, which created an opportunity for cooperation. Rather than conflict between the two species, Spall remained alert for signs of deception or hidden threats, but found the local humans to be genuinely welcoming and eager to share their story with representatives from Earth, even though they clearly possessed technology that could easily overwhelm the small away team. If they had hostile intentions, then he asked about the massive energy signatures his ship had detected, and Maria showed them power generation facilities that used controlled fusion reactions in ways that Earth's scientists had theorized about, but never successfully implemented on such a large-scale. Fusion plants provided unlimited, clean energy to support a population of several million humans living in cities that recycled all waste products and maintained perfect environmental balance with the planet's natural ecosystems through technologies inherited from their alien benefactors. He learned that the local language had evolved to include words and concepts borrowed from the Vorthok that described scientific and philosophical ideas that had no equivalent in standard Earth languages, which suggested centuries of cultural exchange and intellectual development. Maria offered to arrange meetings with the colony's leadership council and scientific community so the Earth visitors could learn about the full scope of technological and social advances that had been achieved through the unique partnership between humans and aliens. Then he accepted the invitation while secretly wondering how Earth Command would react to discovering that a lost human colony had not only survived but had developed capabilities that far exceeded anything in Earth's current colonial empire. Through cooperation with alien species, the away team followed Maria deeper into the city, where they saw evidence of a civilization that had solved problems Earth was still struggling with, including sustainable resource management, social harmony, and technological development that enhanced rather than threatened the natural environment. As evening approached on the alien world, Paul realized that everything they had observed challenged basic assumptions about human civilization and its place in the galaxy, while raising questions about whether Earth's aggressive expansion policy was the best path forward for humanity among the stars. Maria Walsh led the away team to a massive building at the center of the city, where they would meet with Nathan Brooks, who served as the current leader of what the colonists called the Council of Generations and had been chosen to represent their civilization in this historic first contact with Earth after centuries of isolation. The building itself demonstrated the incredible architectural advances the colonists had achieved, with walls that seemed to be made of living crystal that glowed softly with internal light, and corridors that curved in ways that should have been impossible but felt perfectly natural to walk through. Amy Rodriguez continued documenting the linguistic evolution she observed in signs and conversations around them, noting that the colonists had developed new words for concepts that did not exist in Earth languages, particularly related to their unique relationship with the extinct alien species. Nathan Brooks appeared to be in his 40s, but Maria quietly mentioned that he was actually over 150 years old, which surprised Danny Phillips, since the man showed no signs of advanced aging that would be expected in someone of that age. Based on Earth medical knowledge, Nathan welcomed them to what he called New Eden and began explaining the remarkable story of how his ancestors had arrived on this world aboard the colony ship New Frontier, which had been launched from Earth in 2157 using an experimental faster-than-light drive that most Earth scientists considered too dangerous for regular use. The New Frontier had been part of a secret program to test advanced propulsion systems that could open up distant regions of space for human colonization, but something had gone wrong during the maiden voyage, and the ship had disappeared completely, leading Earth authorities to abandon the experimental drive technology instead of being destroyed, as everyone assumed the ship had been thrown across thousands of light years to the star system, where the colonists found themselves stranded on a world that was already inhabited by an ancient alien civilization that was in the process of peaceful extinction. Nathan explained that the Vorthok had been a highly advanced species that had reached the end of their natural evolutionary cycle and were preparing to pass peacefully into extinction after millions of years of existence. but were willing to share their knowledge with the unexpected human arrivals. The initial contact between humans and Vorthok had been difficult, since the two species thought in completely different ways, but gradually they had learned to communicate and discovered that they could benefit from each other in ways that neither had anticipated. When the humans first arrived, Helen Martinez, who had joined the away team, as a xenobiologist, listened with fascination as Nathan described how the Vorthok had possessed incredible scientific knowledge but lacked the creativity and adaptability that humans brought to problem solving, which made their partnership surprisingly effective. Aliens had shared their mastery of energy manipulation, gravity control, advanced materials science, and biological enhancement techniques, while the humans had contributed innovative thinking, cultural diversity, and the ability to adapt alien concepts for practical applications. Over the course of several generations, the two species had worked together to build a new kind of civilization that combined the best aspects of both human and Vorthok knowledge, creating technologies that neither species could have developed alone. Nathan led them through a museum dedicated to the partnership between humans and Vorthok, where they saw examples of the scientific breakthroughs that had been achieved through cooperation, including the fusion power systems that provided unlimited clean energy for the entire colony, and examined displays showing biological enhancement techniques that had extended human lifespans to over 300 years while maintaining physical health and mental clarity throughout the extended lifetime, which explained Nathan's youthful appearance despite his advanced age. The Vorthok had also shared their understanding of consciousness and mental processes, leading to developments in education and social organization that had eliminated many of the conflicts and problems that plagued human societies on Earth and its other colonies. Sammy learned that the colonists had maintained detailed records of Earth's development through quantum entanglement communication systems inherited from the Vorthok that allowed them to observe their home world without being detected by Earth's technology. Nathan revealed that his people had been aware of Earth's struggles with environmental degradation, resource depletion, social conflicts, and the challenges of establishing sustainable colonies in hostile environments across human space. The colonists had been preparing to make contact with Earth for several decades, but had waited until they were certain that humanity was ready to receive advanced technology without using it for destructive purposes or allowing it to destabilize existing social and political systems. Denny asked about the current status of the Vorthok, and Nathan explained that the last of the alien species had passed away peacefully nearly 200 years ago, after ensuring that their human partners had mastered all the knowledge necessary to continue developing their shared civilization. The museum contained a memorial section dedicated to the Vorthok with artifacts and recordings that showed how the aliens had approached their extinction not with fear or sadness, but with satisfaction that their knowledge would continue through their human inheritors. Shulin realized that the partnership between humans and Vorthok represented something unprecedented in the history of interspecies contact, since it had been based on mutual benefit and respect rather than conquest or exploitation, which challenged many assumptions about how different species would interact. Nathan concluded the tour by explaining that the colonists now faced a choice about how to proceed with reestablishing contact with Earth, since they possessed knowledge that could solve many of humanity's problems, but were concerned about how it might be used by Earth's political and military leadership. As they prepared to return to the shuttle, Daniel wondered how Captain Morrison and Earth Command would react to learning that a lost human colony had not only survived, but had achieved technological and social advances that made Earth's civilization seem primitive by comparison. Engineer specialist Chris Thompson joined the second away team mission, focused specifically on understanding the advanced technology that had been developed through the human-Vorthok partnership, and immediately found himself overwhelmed by systems that operated on scientific principles Earth's engineers had never encountered. Nathan Brooks arranged for Chris to work directly with the colony's chief technology coordinator, Dr. Gary Lewis, who had been born on New Eden and represented the third generation of humans to benefit from Vorthok scientific knowledge, which had been integrated into human understanding over centuries of careful study. and development showed Chris to the colony's primary fusion power facility where controlled nuclear reactions were maintained using magnetic field manipulation techniques that allowed the reactors to operate at impossible efficiency levels. While producing no radioactive waste or dangerous byproducts, fusion systems generated enough power to support the entire colonial population of over 2 million people, while also providing energy for manufacturing, transportation, environmental control, and scientific research projects that would require the output of hundreds of conventional power plants on Earthrise examined the gravity manipulation systems that allowed the colonists to build structures that reached incredible heights without traditional structural support, and learned that the technology was based on understanding fundamental forces that Earth physicists had theorized about, but never successfully controlled. Explained that the Vorthik had possessed knowledge of what humans called unified field theory, which allowed them to manipulate gravitational, electromagnetic, and quantum forces as easily as Earth engineers controlled simple mechanical systems like pulleys and levers. Colonists had adapted these principles to create transportation networks where vehicles moved through the air using controlled gravity fields rather than traditional propulsion systems, resulting in completely silent and pollution-free travel throughout their cities and between settlements. Helen Martinez focused her attention on the biological enhancement systems that had extended human lifespans and found that the technology worked by optimizing cellular repair mechanisms and preventing the accumulation of genetic damage that normally caused aging. In unmodified humans, life extension treatments were administered gradually over many years and worked by teaching human cells to maintain themselves more efficiently rather than replacing biological processes with artificial systems, which meant that enhanced humans remained fully human rather than becoming cyborg hybrid. Shilin discovered that the colonists had also developed medical techniques that could repair virtually any injury or disease by using advanced understanding of biological systems combined with nanotechnology that could work at the cellular level to restore damaged tissue. Gary showed the away team through research laboratories where colonial scientists were working on projects that would have seemed like pure fantasy to Earth researchers, including consciousness transfer systems that could back up and restore human memories and personalities. The consciousness research had been developed originally to preserve Vorthik knowledge as their species approached extinction, but had evolved into technology that allowed humans to survive even fatal injuries by transferring their minds to cloned bodies or artificial storage systems. Trees learned about manufacturing techniques that used molecular assembly systems to build complex devices atom by atom, resulting in materials with properties that could not be achieved through conventional production methods. Known to Earth's industrial systems, the colonists could create substances that were stronger than any Earth metals while remaining lighter than plastic, and could manufacture electronic components with capabilities that exceeded Earth's best supercomputers while consuming minimal power. Gary explained that all of these technological advances had been developed not for military purposes, but to create a sustainable civilization that could thrive indefinitely without depleting natural resources or damaging the planetary environment. Colonies' environmental systems maintain perfect ecological balance by recycling all waste products into useful materials and using biological processes enhanced with alien knowledge to clean air and water more effectively than any Earth technologian. Observed that the colonists had solved problems that Earth considered impossible, including how to support large populations without environmental degradation and how to maintain social harmony in a diverse society with abundant resources and advanced technology. The colonists had developed social systems based on Vorthik philosophical principles that emphasized cooperation and long-term thinking rather than competition and short-term gains, which had eliminated many sources of conflict that plagued human societies on Earth. Cries asked about defensive capabilities and learned that the colony possessed technologies that could create protective force fields around their cities and disable hostile technology at a distance. But these systems had never been used against other humans. Gary revealed that the colonists had been monitoring Earth's military development and were concerned about humanity's tendency to use new technology for warfare, rather than peaceful advancement, which was why they had hesitated to make contact until now colonial leadership had decided that Earth's current expansion policies were based on resource extraction and territorial control, rather than sustainable development, which suggested that advanced technology might be misused. If transferred without careful preparation, Helen realized that the colonists represented not just technological advancement, but social and cultural evolution that had been guided by alien wisdom accumulated over millions of years of civilized development, which gave them perspectives that pure human societies lacked. Gary concluded the technical demonstrations by explaining that the colony was willing to share their knowledge with Earth, but only if humanity could demonstrate readiness to use advanced technology responsibly for the benefit of all people rather than for military or economic domination. As the away team prepared to return to the Meridian, Chris wondered whether Earth's leaders would be willing to accept the conditions that the colonists were likely to impose in exchange for access to technology that could transform human civilization. Captain Jake Morrison had barely finished transmitting his initial reports to Earth Command when long-range sensors detected a massive fleet approaching the Kepler 442 system, under the command of Admiral Kevin Carter, who was known throughout Earth's military for his aggressive approach to colonial expansion and resource acquisition. The fleet consisted of 12 heavy cruisers, 40 escort vessels, and multiple troop transport ships carrying enough military personnel to occupy and control an entire star system, which suggested that Earth Command viewed the lost colony as a potential threat rather than fellow humans in need of assistance. Jake realized that Admiral Carter had been monitoring their communications and had assembled the intervention force, while the Meridian was still investigating the colonial civilization, which meant that Earth's leadership had already decided to take control of the advanced technology by military force. If necessary, colony leader Samuel Turner contacted Jake directly through quantum communication channels and revealed that his people had detected the approaching Earth fleet days before it became visible to the Meridian's sensors, using detection systems inherited from Vorthik technology. Samuel explained that the colonists possessed defensive capabilities that could easily destroy or disable the entire Earth fleet without causing casualties, but they refused to use violence against people from their ancestral home world, even if those people came with hostile intent. Sake found himself caught between his oath of loyalty to Earth Command and his growing understanding that the colonists represented humanity's potential future, rather than a threat to be controlled, which created an impossible situation. With no clear resolution, Jennifer Walsh, who served as the colony's lead scientist, contacted Jake with a proposal that might resolve the crisis without bloodshed by offering to share colonial technology with Earth under specific conditions, designed to prevent its misuse for military purposes. The colonists were willing to provide Earth with solutions to environmental problems, energy shortages, medical challenges, and resource limitations, but only if Earth's government agreed to fundamental changes in how humanity approached expansion and interstellar relations. Jennifer explained that the technology could not be safely transferred to a civilization that maintained large military forces and continued to view other species as potential enemies rather than possible partners, which described Earth's current approach to galactic exploration. Colonists had learned from Vorthik history that advanced technology in the hands of aggressive civilizations inevitably led to destruction and extinction, which was why they insisted on social and political changes before sharing their scientific knowledge. Admiral Carter arrived in the system and immediately demanded that Jake surrender command of the situation to military authority, while ordering the colonists to submit to Earth government control and prepare for immediate technology transfer to military research facility. Samuel Turner responded to Carter's demands by demonstrating colonial defensive capabilities through a display that temporarily disabled all weapons systems on the Earth fleet without causing any permanent damage, which proved that the colonists could defend themselves if necessary. The demonstration created a tense standoff, with Earth's military forces unable to use their weapons, while the colonists maintained their position that they would not attack fellow humans, but would Also not submit to military occupation or forced technology transfer. Jack attempted to mediate between Carter's military approach and Turner's peaceful resistance by proposing negotiations that could satisfy both sides, but found that the admiral was determined to secure colonial technology regardless of the potential consequence. Carter argued that Earth needed the advanced technology to defend human space against potential alien threats and could not allow such powerful capabilities to remain outside of official government control, even if the colonists claimed to have peaceful intentions. Turner countered that Earth's militaristic approach to expansion had already created tensions with several alien species, and that providing advanced weapons to Earth's military would likely trigger conflicts that could endanger all human colonies. Throughout the Galactic debate continued for several days, while both fleets maintained their positions, with Earth forces unable to act militarily and colonial forces unwilling to use their superior technology to resolve the situation. Through Forsetter, Lisa Carter worked with both sides to develop compromise proposals, but found that the fundamental disagreement about how advanced technology should be used created barriers that seemed impossible to overcome. Through normal diplomatic methods, Jake realized that the standoff could continue indefinitely, since neither side was willing to back down from their core principles, which meant that some kind of breakthrough would be required to prevent the situation from escalating into actual conflict. Jennifer Walsh finally proposed a solution that involved gradual technology transfer combined with monitoring systems that would ensure the knowledge was used for peaceful purposes rather than military applications. But Carter rejected any limitations on Earth's sovereignty. Crisis reached its peak when Carter threatened to withdraw Earth's protection from all human colonies unless the colonists surrendered their technology immediately, which would leave millions of people vulnerable to alien attack or environmental disaster. Turner responded by offering to provide protective technology to all human colonies directly rather than through Earth's military, which would guarantee their safety while preventing the technology from being used for aggressive expansion or warfare. Jake found himself making the most important decision of his career when he chose to support the colonial position and convinced several other Earthship commanders that the colonists offered a better path forward for humanity than continued military expansion. Unexpected support from within Earth's own forces convinced Admiral Carter that his military approach was creating division rather than unity among human settlements, which finally opened the possibility for genuine negotiation rather than confrontation. The breakthrough came when Captain Jake Morrison convinced Admiral Kevin Carter to visit the colonial surface personally and see the civilization that had been built through cooperation rather than conquest, which allowed the admiral to understand what the colonists had achieved during their centuries of isolation. Carter met with colonial leaders, including Samuel Turner and Dr. Jennifer Walsh, who showed him through their cities and explained how advanced technology had been integrated with social systems that prioritized long-term sustainability and peaceful coexistence over short-term military advantage. The admiral observed that the colonists had solved problems that Earth considered unsolvable, including how to support large populations without environmental damage and how to maintain social harmony among diverse groups with different backgrounds and beliefs. Jennifer demonstrated medical technology that could extend human lifespans while maintaining health and vitality, which convinced Carter that the colonial advances could benefit all of humanity if properly implemented, rather than restricted to military application. Samuel explained that the colonists were willing to establish permanent embassies on Earth and begin gradual technology transfer programs, but only if Earth's government committed to peaceful expansion policies and environmental restoration projects on damaged worlds. Negotiations continued for weeks as both sides worked out detailed agreements about how colonial knowledge would be shared and what safeguards would be implemented to prevent the technology from being misused for military conquest or economic exploitation. Carter eventually agreed to the colonial terms after realizing that attempting to seize the technology by force would likely result in its destruction and the loss of opportunities that could transform human civilization. For the better, engineer Lisa Park led the first joint Earth colonial research team tasked with beginning the integration of advanced technologies starting with fusion power systems that could replace the polluting energy sources used by most Earth. Colonialist fusion technology was adapted for Earth's existing infrastructure through a careful process that allowed colonial engineers to work alongside Earth scientists while maintaining security protocols that prevented military applications of the power systems. Colonial medical teams began working with Earth hospitals to implement life extension treatments and advanced healing techniques, but only in civilian facilities, and under agreements that prevented the technology from being used. To enhance military personnel, environmental restoration projects started on several damaged Earth colonies where colonial technology was used to repair ecosystems that had been devastated by mining operations or industrial development. During the early expansion period, the colonists established cultural exchange programs that brought young people from Earth to New Eden, where they could learn about the social systems that had been developed through human-Vorthic cooperation and could carry those ideas back to their home world. Earth provided the genetic diversity that the colonial population needed for long-term survival, since their small founding population had created limitations that could only be resolved through intermarriage with people from other human settlements. Captain Morrison received command of the first joint exploration vessel called the UES Harmony, which was staffed by crews from both Earth and the colony, and equipped with advanced technology that combined the best of both civilizations' capabilities. The Harmony was designed not for military conquest, but for peaceful exploration and first contact missions with alien species, using colonial diplomatic protocols that emphasized cooperation rather than domination and interstellar relations. Liza Carter served as the ship's cultural liaison officer, responsible for ensuring that contact with alien civilizations followed the principles that had made the human-Vorthic partnership successful rather than the aggressive approach that Earth had used in previous encounters. Ship's first mission took them to a star system where Earth scouts had detected signs of intelligent life, but had been instructed to avoid contact until military forces could be positioned to handle potential threats. Instead of approaching with warships, the Harmony made peaceful contact with the alien inhabitants and discovered a civilization that was willing to share scientific knowledge in exchange for cultural exchange and trade agreements. A successful first contact mission proved that the colonial approach to interstellar relations was more effective than military intimidation and opened up possibilities for cooperation with alien species that had previously avoided contact with humans. Jake realized that the discovery of the lost colony had changed everything about humanity's future in the galaxy by providing not just advanced technology, but wisdom about how to use that technology responsibly for the benefit of all intelligent species. The integration of colonial knowledge with Earth's resources created opportunities for human civilization to advance beyond anything that either society could have achieved alone, which validated the original vision of the partnership between humans and Vorthic. Human people from both civilizations worked together on the Harmony's bridge, representing a new generation of humans who would carry the best qualities of both societies to the stars, while building relationships with alien species based on mutual respect. Lost colony was no longer lost, but had become the foundation for a new kind of human presence in the galaxy that emphasized exploration and cooperation rather than conquest and exploitation. As the Harmony prepared for its second mission, Jake looked out at the stars and knew that humanity had found something more valuable than advanced technology in the form of wisdom about how to use that technology to build a better future for all intelligent life in the galaxy.